Former President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam's mortal remains have been laid to rest with full state honours in Rameswaram. The last rites were performed amid massive outpouring of grief. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi and many other dignitaries paid their last respects to Dr. Kalam before his body was buried. Dr. Kalam's body was first taken to the mosque as part of Namaz-e-Janaza. After the prayers, the procession moved to the cremation ground and thousands of mourners fought back tears as they stood in queues on trees, on rooftops and all along the way. For the final glimpse of the people's president, around 2,000 police and security personnel were deployed in the town of Rameswaram to manage the situation. Rajdeep, the people's president has been laid to rest. We have seen political rivals coming together and laying to rest the former president, the much loved president, I should say, because of the number of people who had turned out today.
And Maha, we have some more information about that ceremony which was performed just a short while ago, the final burial ceremony of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The government has set aside 1.36 acres of land for the ceremony. This is the Tamil Nadu government along with the central government, where a memorial could be built in the area in the future. So there could be a memorial there in Rameswaram that could be built. It is Mandapam is a panchayat town in Ramanathapuram district where this is where this memorial will be. Kalam had, Dr. Kalam had studied up to second division, second form in the Mandapam Panchayat Union School before moving to Swartz High School in Ramanathapuram to join third form. So Mandapam was where it all began in a sense. So it is the circle of life, as we've been saying, where he's gone. So I think what you will, where he's been buried, it is a 1.36 acres of land. The ceremony that we saw, those visuals that you're getting, is where where a memorial is likely to come up. I don't know how Mr. Kalam would see a memorial. I don't think he was someone who was much for memorials. He would have been happier perhaps if a school is perhaps set up there tomorrow, because that really is what APJ Abdul Kalam was. If you set up a school there, I think his spirit will really be lifted to see if young students with scholarships, there's a school set up somewhere in Mandapam again.
But Rajdeep, a memorial will help, continue his legacy in some way, because students can come there, take a look at what his life was all about. Maybe, they can have pictures of him, of every stage of his life, and that can be an inspiration to people.
Forgive me for being cynical for just a moment, but these memorials in this country, most of these memorials are in Delhi. All the prime ministers of this country want memorials here in this country. Have the memorials really served to really truly inspire people with the teachings of Gandhi or a Nehru or a Shastri? I have a huge question mark. I would be happiest, I think Kalam Sahab would be happiest if a great science school and college could be built in Mandapam, where students from all over India can come. The best 1,000 students on scholarship come to Mandapam to build a science college and a university possibly in the name of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Couldn't that be a great tribute for the man? So I think the nature of memorials also need to change in this country, Maha. I mean, Gandhi, where is the truly great Gandhi museum? I would like young Indians to go through. Even today you have Teen Murti, I know that is there, but it isn't, a man of Gandhi's eminence needed a far greater, I believe, tribute even beyond this, where people could actually learn possibly Gandhi's teachings, create a school, a college. Similarly with Dr. Kalam, these are people whose legacy must live on for what they represented in their life. Simplicity, science, scholarship. Let's reflect that through a memorial, not just through some stone plaque. That's, sorry to sound cynical, Maha, but that's what I've seen happen in the past.
Rajdeep, what do you think Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam would be best remembered for? Being a scientist, being a teacher, or being the president?
He will be remembered for all his achievements, but as he himself said, I want to be remembered as a teacher. And I think when he says teacher, I think what he means is someone who taught people not just science as a subject, but taught a subject called the journey of life. Because his life story is what people should learn from him. the ability to work hard through merit, through knowledge, through climb up. And that's how he would like to be remembered, I think. Someone who was a true nationalist, a patriot, but above all was someone who taught thousands and thousands of young people to live their dreams. I think Kalam Sahab, the positive energy, we think glass is half full. With this man, the glass was 99% full, possibly 100% full. He was boundless energy, boundless positivism. And I think that's how he would like to be remembered.
And Rajiv, we were talking about this earlier as well. He was a man who truly embodied what India is all about.
I think he did. Look at where he comes from. The great Indian dream is about someone who comes from the smallest of homes and then goes into the palatial Rashtrapati Bhavan and continues to live the life that he was always used to. Someone who through knowledge, through education, builds himself up and goes up the ladder, not through connections, not through networks, not through family, not through dynasty. He represents this new India. And I think that's the new India story. There are many Kalams out there. We constantly hear of young entrepreneurs who are breaking the stereotype, doing new things, coming from humble origins. Super 30, the IITs, where you have an auto rickshaw driver's son today who can aspire to be an IIT and God knows what else he will then next become. I think Kalam in a sense inspires those little kids who will sit in Super 30s, go through the IIT JEE, who will go through the All India pre-medical tests. These are the Indians of the future. For a young country, you needed a president like Kalam. And I think at the end of the day, he was the right person at the right place at the right time.
Rajdeep, usually people who rise through the ranks and have come from a humble background, in some cases you see them still remaining humble, but in most cases you see them, towards the end having a chip on their shoulder, having some sort of, if not arrogance, that pride that sets them apart from everybody else and isolates them. Never for Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. I mean, what is it that really kept him so rooted and grounded?
I think it's a generational thing. I just feel that, I don't know whether this is true or whether I'm being whether I'm making a sweeping statement, but the Indians that I've met from the 50s and 60s, who grew up in the 50s and 60s, seem far more rooted than the Indians I've met in the last 15, 20 years. I think maybe, as we become this so-called aspirational society, everyone is ambitious and wants to drive ahead. Ambition sometimes means that we lose connections from where it all began, with our origins. I think APJ Abdul Kalam comes from that generation. It was a Gandhi Nehruvian generation of Indians, the 50s and 60s generation. They were inspired by the freedom struggle. This was a country which lived in scarcity in those years.
Yes.
And therefore you didn't have all the material pleasures that today's India has.
True.
So I think that kept that generation rooted. I think APJ Abdul Kalam represented that India, that Nehruvian India, which looked at knowledge, which looked at science and education. As Nehru himself said, temples, the IITs in a sense will be the temples of modern India. I think that was science, the pursuit of science, the pursuit of knowledge. APJ Abdul Kalam truly embodied that spirit. He represented the secular spirit without having to wear it on his sleeve.
Yes.
He didn't have to tell you that, I'm a secular Muslim. He truly embodied the multi-religious culture of this society. As I said, Islamic heritage and at the same time conscious of his Indian roots. I think that was the true spirit of India which APJ represented.
Rajiv, he was also one of the men behind the Pokhran nuclear tests.
Yes, he was.
After that, India was isolated for some time as far as, being in the nuclear group is concerned. We were much maligned for having conducted that test. But, he had that belief that India needs to be self-reliant in all fields, even in the form of having perhaps a deterrent in the form of a nuclear test, a nuclear, power.
No, absolutely. And even now, when there were the Kudankulam protests, APJ Abdul Kalam didn't side with the protesters or the activists. He was very clear, India needs nuclear power. So he was ready to take what might be seen as unfashionable, unpopular causes among a section of society. As Manmohan Singh in his interview to Karan Thapar said yesterday, when there was this entire pressure over the Indo-US nuclear deal, Dr. Singh suggested to Mulayam Singh and Amar Singh, go and meet Dr. Kalam. He will explain the benefits of the deal, which he did. So he was passionate about issues. He believed in issues. He was convinced that nuclear power was what India needed. So I think you've got to see a man as someone who was not imprisoned by the past, but was looking to the future. I think that is a greatness of an APJ Abdul Kalam.
Also, Rajdeep, as you were mentioning there, that Prime Minister at that time, Manmohan Singh, asked people who were opposed to the nuclear deal to go and speak with him for the benefits. He was also a man who gave ample support to Dr. Manmohan Singh at that time to go ahead with the deal. And he was the person who was, the chief scientific advisor for Vajpayee as well, transcending two very different ideologies and two very different parties, two very different coalitions.
I agree, and let me be honest, when he was first made president, I remember speaking to Pramod Mahajan, who was played a very critical role at the time in making Kalamji president. And I was among those who felt that maybe he has been made because the NDA is looking for a convenient choice. That, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam will be a rubber stamp president to the extent that he will be seen as an NDA president. At the end of the day, I was mistaken. APJ Abdul Kalam may have been chosen by the NDA because they were looking at the time for a Muslim face for the presidency. Let's be very honest. But APJ Abdul Kalam was not imprisoned by religion. APJ Abdul Kalam's badge was not I am a Muslim. APJ Abdul Kalam's badge was I am a scientist, I am a proud Indian. And I think that is the difference that we need to recognize. All of us need to recognize that APJ Abdul Kalam in the end, raised the presidency. Some people get raised by the chair which they are in. APJ Abdul Kalam did just the opposite. The presidency was raised by APJ Abdul Kalam. You felt proud of a Rashtrapati after a long time.
That's very
and with K.R. Narayanan as well. K.R. Narayanan is another remarkable journey that we don't often document. And he too was a newspaper man, worked in the Times of India, as he once told me, in the 1940s. But all these people raised the stature of the presidency. I think stature is what APJ Abdul Kalam gave the presidency, and it's a pity sometimes that we've had presidents who've diminished that office. APJ Abdul Kalam raised the office.
Rajdeep, let's quickly tell our viewers that the visuals they are seeing on their television screens at the moment are from Rameswaram. The Prime Minister is leaving the burial grounds the moment Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam has been laid to rest. Rajdeep, those visuals again on the television screens now of the number of people, Rajdeep, just look at the number of people there surrounding that burial ground. We saw them climbing atop trees, holding the tricolors in their hands and standing on rooftops. Clearly, people identified with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Maybe many of them have not been able to do so well in their life as him, but they definitely see a ray of hope when they see a man like Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam.
I think they do. I think, we live in a world where are the heroes? Who are our heroes? Who are the people that we have to look up to? Sachin Tendulkar is a Bharat Ratna, but Sachin Tendulkar also, let's be honest, at the end of the day, was a tremendous cricketer, but still needs to show that he has, beyond his cricket, has he reached out to millions through maybe some special Sachin Tendulkar Foundation? Who are our other Bharat Ratnas? Most of them, MS Subbalakshmi, great in their own field, but didn't go beyond that. APJ Abdul Kalam went beyond being a scientist. India has had many greater scientists, Maha. Homi Bhabha, Satish Dhawan. As Satish Dhawan, APJ Saab said, was his guru. Vikram Sarabhai, who was also one of his first gurus, who in a sense discovered APJ Abdul Kalam. These were possibly far greater scientists. They were true nuclear physicists. There is even a dispute whether, Kalam Saab can be called a true nuclear physicist. He's a missile technologist. To my mind, this is quibbling. At the end of the day, he built institutions and he ensured that science, in a sense, was something which the young could identify with. That, in a way, is far greater than just being a missile scientist. So he's gone beyond his area of expertise. That's what makes him a true Bharat Ratna, in the truest sense of the word.
Rajdeep, he was a rank outsider when it came to the office of the president. He had no political affiliation, so to speak. How did he make it there? I mean, apart from the fact that you've already mentioned that the NDA was looking for a Muslim face, how is it that...
When the nuclear tests took place, he was very much part of the entire exercise. He was the head of the DRDO at the time. Brajesh Mishra, who was the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor and possibly the most powerful man in the Vajpayee government, had a very good personal relationship with Kalam. Pramod Mahajan had also built an excellent equation with Dr. Kalam in those years as India was trying to manage the fallout of the nuclear tests in the late 90s. So they were able to, there was a personal equation, and Vajpayee ji also had enormous admiration for Dr. Kalam, and Dr. Kalam also admired Vajpayee ji. So I think there was mutual admiration there. And when you looked around, to the great credit of Pramod Mahajan and Vajpayee ji at the time, and Brajesh Mishra, they looked for a president with stature. Let's be clear, the Congress party for the longest time often looked for presidents from the Congress party who in a sense were being rewarded for the long years that they had served the Congress party. Dr. Kalam had not served the NDA, he had served the country with the nuclear test. But it is to the credit of Mr. Vajpayee and Mr. Mahajan and Mr. Mishra that they saw in him also a leader of stature. So, as I said, right place, right time, right person. Maybe for some he was what they were looking for, a sort of nationalist Muslim. For others he was, in a sense, a scientist, a man of stature. It all fell into place. And, India is fortunate that as a result, I think now, governments will look at Kalamji and what the kind of funeral he's getting and say, maybe we should also look for a president of stature. Let's not only look for presidents as token symbols. Let's look for presidents who will contribute to their office in a meaningful way. And I hope the Congress party in particular is looking at this, because the Congress party, frankly, has had a habit in the past of appointing presidents who simply have not had the stature that they deserve. Why can't great Indians be made presidents? And Ela Bhatt, why couldn't she have been India's first woman president? The Seva, who started Seva. Why couldn't a Narayan Murthy have been? Why can't a Gopal Gandhi? People who are men of stature, who are men of intellect, who are men of courage. I think we need to make more of them presidents of India and follow the Kalam example. I'm sure there are many Indians out there who could play that role.
Rajdeep, there was a lot of, there was the public sentiment in favor of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam for a second term was there. Why was there no political consensus at that time?
I think there are no, it's tough to say where are, I think there was no, I think the Congress party in a sense never really sort of understood what Kalam meant. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's really what it was. So he became identified with the BJP government, and it's sad when offices of presidency get caught in a Congress BJP tug of war, and for a while Kalam's office did get. So maybe the Congress has learned, hopefully, now that if they ever come back to power again, look for a Kalam-like president.
And is that the reason that he himself gracefully opted out?
I think the Congress, yes, I think he saw that the Congress was not going to back him, and I don't think he wanted to be in a contest. The last thing he wanted to be was in an electoral contest in 2007.
He wasn't that kind of a person.
He wasn't that kind of a person. Again, there was an attempt in 2012-13, if you remember, the likes of Mamta Banerjee had raised the name of APJ Abdul Kalam, and again he feared that he would be in a contest, and he never, and rightly so. I don't think leaders like him should be caught in electoral contests.
All right, those are visuals from Rameswaram. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam has been laid to rest. The Prime Minister has left the venue. Lots of people are still thronging that area as Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam has been laid to rest. The relatives and the family members still in the burial grounds. As Rajdeep was pointing out, it is likely that in this area a memorial is likely to be built for Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Taking a very quick break now, we are leaving you with these visuals of the massive outpouring for the former president who has been laid to rest.